It's me, Capri. My mommy is the best. Super mom will be best. She helps mommy get their smiles back, their giggles back, and their sparkle back. You wait for the straw brush. Get ready for It's Super Slippery and Super Slap.
All right, everyone, welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, with this being season number 6, episode number 2, in partnership with Sphere Rocket with all your virtual assistant needs. The link to connect to Sphere Rocket is at the bottom of this episode. I am your host, Robin Stoltman. Today, I have my guest, Lincoln Stoller, who is a clinical counselor, hypnotherapist, experience in physics, software, consulting, neurology, brain training, sleep, dreams, altered states, and he is on the show today talking about the foundation of spirituality and counseling. And before we get started, remember, every week I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. So let's get started. Thank you so much, Lincoln, for being here today. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Robin.
So in everything that you do, like, what is like your specialty that you really like to focus on?
This direct answer is people's subconscious, the things that really motivate them. But the indirect answer is I have to deal with people at whatever level they want to talk about things. And so the deepest level is usually private to me and even to them. So I sort of have to back my way, or try to back my way into, the deeper parts of their fears and memories and stuff as appropriate, as they allow. Some people are very intellectual and they're very organized, maybe even confident, and there are people who are exactly the opposite. Surprisingly, they have a lot of the same issues, though. So, I try to get them to reveal, mostly to themselves, what their motivations are. It's funny, I don't necessarily... You can imagine that you're eliciting somebody's story, but you can't entirely believe it. It's kind of the cover of the book kind of thing. So,
True.
So I try to get there. I try to get them to reveal themselves in not too hostile ways.
Appreciate that, because I agree with what you say. It's someone recently had said to me, and it's very true, that things are not always what they seem or what they appear to be. And it reminds me of like the mirror, the side mirrors on the vehicles that say that, like, you look in the side mirror and it talks about how the objects may be closer than they appear.
Yeah, right.
And that's exactly what you were just talking about. Something
they
simple
also
like
might
that.
not even be as they appear. Also because you sometimes, another thing that I think is important is that there's this definition of mental illness, which is like this severe, difference of hopeless people. And it's kind of baloney. Fundamentally, it's just a description of people's behavior, because nobody has any biological basis for any of this. So, and it's a behavior as other people see you. Fair enough. Some people are definitely a little weird, and they don't know it. And there are a lot of people who are weird and they do know it and they manipulate. And, so it's kind of a mixed bag. But I think everybody's got a little weirdness somewhere. Either they're hiding it or they're using it or something. So that the idea... So when I deal with a person who thinks they're mentally ill, who wants to use that, and you can use it, you can get money for it. And I encourage people, say, if that's what... If you can get insurance coverage because somebody says you're schizophrenic, then go for it. There's a stigma, but maybe it's worth it. And then there are the healthy people, or the people who think they're healthy, and I kind of point out to them that some of their behaviors are not that healthy. And
True.
Managing relationships and goals and money and materialism and people, it takes a balanced, well, I could actually say spirit, but you could even just get it more pragmatic, just a balanced behavior. And sometimes I say to them, I think you're crazy. And these are the people who would never be called crazy. So I think I don't want to maybe call it fluid or a spectrum of thinking of yourself. I mean, this stuff comes out in extreme situations, of course, when things break down. That doesn't mean you're mentally ill just because you flip out occasionally. I mean, it depends, you know. You're not going to be, if you have sort of family discord, some family crisis, it doesn't mean you're schizophrenic, but you might be. I mean, because I say it's just a behavior thing, and it's all, you know, usually the mental illness definitions say you have to behave this way for a continuous amount of time to get the label. But there are a lot of people who are sort of, they can be triggered in any time and they'll behave badly. And so who comes to me? You know, there are people in confusion. The last thing, I'm kind of a digression here, but the people who come to me are usually the people who are stronger, not the people who are weaker. So sometimes you think, oh, people go to counseling because they really need a crutch. They need to be supported. They're really sort of drowning. But usually they're the people who are actually prevailing, they've got a foothold because they have to pay for it. That's why. And if they didn't think they were going to get something out of it, they might not be coming for counseling. Anyway, so it can be counseling, it can be coaching, it can be psychotherapy. The one thing I don't do is I don't give drugs. But interesting enough, psychedelics, which are now becoming popular, well, they're kind of drugs, even though you can get them through the mail. So I talk to people about that. But that's another old can of worms because it is, and legally and professionally, and it's kind of like it's an accelerant. You got to be careful with that stuff. Anyway, so I don't give drugs, except I do give advice on using. Well, I mean, everybody uses this stuff too, you know, like antidepressants and alcohol and tobacco. They're all drugs.
Yeah, they are, and a lot of people don't recognize it. It's like, I've told people before, like, once I learned about hypnosis and the power of the mind and how things work, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you call it. It can be an antidepressant or it can be the alcohol bottle. It doesn't matter what bottle that you're using, you're still escaping and numbing your pain up. Instead of choosing to be a rational, mature adult, we're actually allowing yourself to feel the emotions, to go through the emotions, because the emotions are just like the check engine light on your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have noticed that. Have you noticed that within your scope of practice? Because, you know, like you said about the people who go to counseling are usually the ones that have like the foothold, the ones that are doing more of it versus the ones that are more weak, where they don't go seek help.
Yes. Was that a question? You didn't end with a question mark.
Oh, sorry. I guess like I was wondering, like, how do you, like, when you view how people are doing things, they're doing life. And when you have them, when people are coming in to see you, is it more like you've noticed that people are missing like the spiritual aspect of their life more than like the mental illness that you were talking about, or going by this diagnosis that you're talking about?
You know, it's hard to generalize. So, I mean, maybe you could call a person with a mental illness as somebody who's not spiritually connected. And this is crazy, but okay, whatever. You know, a person comes to me often with some issue. And what I like to do, if possible, I say, well, what's the goal here? You know, what are we trying to do? The people who have what I'm calling mental illness, or you could say constant friction. You know, that's actually a better way of calling it. People who have constant friction, they don't have a goal. They just want to like stop. You know, they just want clarity. They don't really put it as a goal. It's not a problem with going to have a one-time solution. And so often with those people who just have this constant friction, I'm using that word, it's just like talking to them. And, you know, you could talk about hypnosis, but, you know, the secret of hypnosis is that everything's hypnosis. So that, you know, even just talking to people can be hypnotic if they choose. Other people who will indulge me with a goal and say, okay, we'll organize this discussion around some topic or issue or problem. You know, that's very nice for me, because then I can focus myself and I can judge my success and I can ask them for, you know, evaluation of how we're doing, which is not very easy when somebody just wants to talk about, you know, their ongoing friction. So it's kind of two different things. And over time, I've kind of distinguished that you can make progress with people who just have ongoing friction. I don't know how I do it. I just try to say, this works, that doesn't work, because clarity and vision and perception are very important, especially for a person with ongoing friction. They often have an ongoing misunderstanding of other people, and they present themselves in a way that's misunderstood. I don't have any trouble talking to most, well, again, generalizing. So schizophrenia is a very wide category, and I think I get a lot of schizophrenics in the ongoing friction category. But there are other people who are much more difficult because they're oppositional, and they're contrary, and they're accusative, and they're paranoid. And those people, you can't really get on their good side because they're just like fighting demons left and right. And you're one of them. So often I have to find myself saying, well, I showed them what I saw, and they struck at it, and that was the best I could do. Yeah, I have one client who actually puts words in my mouth. I mean, says, I told them this, and I'm doing this, and it's like ridiculous. But, what do you say? You're ridiculous, you're crazy. That's where we started from, so we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
So,
I get that.
So I try to get back to your question. I try to go toward what I call a spiritual focus, which is meaning, really. It comes down to its meaning, respect, self-respect. It comes down to love, whatever that is, but, being able to attach and commit. And I was going to use the word endure, as in, I'm not trying to say faith, but something that's fundamentally reliable. It could be in yourself. It could be in people, life. You got to have sort of like, I believe, a foothold somewhere. Not, of course, this doesn't entirely apply if you're one of those people with consistent friction. Maybe that's not the problem. I mean, if somebody's what we call schizophrenic, it's kind of hard to say, well, you should be more spiritual. It's like, that's not the problem anyway. So those are the kind of the two sides that I see. The people who can talk about what's fundamentally important in some way that's meaningful, and the people who just can't get there yet. I don't know if that answers the question at all, but I'll let you ask another question.
Oh, it's all good. I'm sorry to ask the question.
It's a big
in
question,
there. Yeah, it was, and I know there's a lot of generalization too at the same time in that question. So, who or what inspired you to do this work that you do?
I don't know exactly. I have to go into my background. I had a very headstrong father who was very accomplished and focused and kind of ignored his family. But I was lucky when I was a preteen. I feel I was lucky to become his photo assistant occasionally so that I could join his world, since he wasn't too interested in joining anyone else's. And that was great, because then I could see a real person in your parents are indelibly inscribed on you, your soul, your genetics, your life. You can't get rid of them ever. So the good contact with any parent is a great thing. So I felt I got at that point a good contact with a father who was otherwise sort of remote and obsessed with his success and achievement. And that was good. On the other hand, my mother, I could never really get in touch with because she was an artist and was always kind of ditzy and lost. And she was there, but not there. She was kind of vaporous ghost to me. I couldn't get any. It was like she was an AI character, always responding in a sort of a positive way. And it drove me nuts. I never felt she was seeing me. And so the combination of those two people is, the parents really, they have a tremendous effect on who you turn out to be, and the problems and the way you carry yourself and how you view the world. So I kind of was left to wonder what the hell was going on with life when I was a kid. I guess I had a certain sort of intellectual bent, maybe it was genetic, I don't know. So I thought science would be an interesting answer to that question, and that's kind of a joke, because, to be honest, science doesn't answer those questions. It's just a how-to.
Yeah, it is.
And, but you don't know that at first, because society elevates scientists as the new sort of religion. And you think you're going to get all these answers, and a lot of those people strut around as if they have them. So I went into physics, which took a while. But it's funny because in high school I couldn't get a good beat on what science was because it was just taught from a textbook.
Yeah.
And then I had the brilliant idea of going and talking to people who I actually thought knew the answers. And some of them are great, like 1 out of 20. That's my statistics. 1 out of 20 people might actually have their feet on the ground. And you have to be diligent, and you have to have a certain confidence to go through the other 19 who mislead you. And I really encourage people at all ages, really, to go out and talk to find people who have something useful to say, and to expect that 19 times out of 20 you're going to miss.
Yep.
But that 1 time out of 20 you'll hit, the Dalai Lama of your needs or whatever. So I did actually. I actually hit a good guy, and he was a close friend of Albert Einstein's, and very famous, although I didn't know it at the time, and completely humble. After having spent 2 days with him, I still didn't know he was a famous guy. He just talked to me about stuff that was important, and it was just like paternal almost. So, but I mean, it's kind of not exactly paternal, kind of fraternal, because it was like common effort that we both shared. It was like understanding the world. Not necessarily he was going to teach me anything, and I don't subscribe to people who come to you and say they're going to teach you anything. It's like they can tell you something, but to learn is a different thing from hearing. That's an experiential thing. So that was kind of inspired me to go in that direction, which is kind of a joke because I never found another guy like him. Well, I found one other guy like him in my next 10 years of work, but I found 99 people who were disappointing in physics. And it's funny now I'm in my late 60s, and the people who were students when I was a student, now they're becoming famous, and it's kind of a joke because I know who they are. These people don't change. They're just the same old goofy Ted that he was 50 years ago, and I don't think he's any smarter than he was then either. So it starts to become a little transparent over the decades. So I went in that direction, but I was still interested in spirit, and it's very hard to keep a foot on both spirit and materiality at the same time. But I tried, and I followed religious things and Eastern religion, and I have a Jewish background, but I don't like Abrahamic religions much. It's just too much war and violence, and not enough sex. But that's a whole different thing, right? When you're a teenager, you can't avoid that. That's just the world. True. So, I did some interesting things with meditation and shamanism and indigenous culture and nature-based cultures, and traveled a lot. I got involved, actually that's an important thing. I got involved in mountaineering when I was 13 and developed that throughout my teenage years. And that's very useful because it takes you to interesting places. It's an excuse to go places.
True.
And you meet strange people, and you do weird things. And that's a great combination if you can survive, which is a serious question because it's not as stupid as like Russian roulette, but sometimes it is. So, assuming you survive, you've gone to great places, seen great people, taken big risks, and you have to be a reliable person, because you've got partners who depend on you and you depend on them, and it builds character and stuff. So that's great. I'm basically riding on my father's success because summer would come around and he would pay for my airplane tickets. And that's all mountaineering is just a bunch of airplane tickets and a little bit of, equipment.
There's like no mountain climbing then, or no? I'm
There's the
like when
mountain
you're talking about there's the mountain climbing.
Yeah, but the mountain climbing doesn't cost anything. You just go to the mountain and you just, throw yourself at it, and that's it. It doesn't cost anything once you got there. So it's relatively cheap. There's no like, well now, if you're going to go to the Himalayas, you have to pay for things like permissions, but we didn't have to do that. You just go to national parks, and there wasn't any restrictions, or at least nobody was watching. So that was important. So you'd mix like the physics, which is the intellectual attempt at understanding thing stuff, and you'd mix some of this meditation, Eastern indigenous stuff, which is I don't know, emotional or vague, personal, and then you'd mix in this mountaineering, which is like scare the shit out of you stuff,
Yeah.
but also be serious. Be serious, be dependable, and you had to be organized. You had to get there, have the right food, and have your shoelaces tied. And the last thing I was interested in doing was psychology, because that seemed like a total crock. It's just, a bunch of guys in tweed suits telling you about your mind and making it all up, basically. It's not a science. And it was only through, I would say, well, you see, the psychedelics are not that far from religion, because all religions have dabbled into altered states, whether it's, ecstasy or religious, all those states of connection.
Altered consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of them use sacraments that are either symbolic or powerful. It doesn't, so here we get to hypnosis, is that the fact is it doesn't really matter how you get there, whether it's with LSD or prayer. Once you're there, the world is a different place. And now you got to figure out what it means. So, that's kind of my answer to the whole psychedelic thing, is like, I don't really care. And you probably shouldn't care either. It's like, where do you think you're going? And what are you going to do when you get there? If you're just going to if your world is going to explode into stars and rainbows, well, what's the use of that? You can, I guess that's fun, but usually there's more motivation than that. So through that, I was sort of connected to indigenous religions. I went to interesting places like Mongolia, and Mongolia was nice because they were welcoming. If you go to the North American indigenous peoples, you're not that welcomed, because the history of,
yeah, that makes sense.
Too fresh. But sometimes, you can go to some Native American stuff and learn something without being considered a hostile white person or a hostile any person. So that sort of came back around to psychology, at least my version of psychology, which is not the guys in the tweed suits telling you how your mind works. But they have some interesting ideas historically. It all fits in sort of how things came about. And it fits into sort of science, because psychologists were trying to be scientists, and at least they were trying to look like them.
Yeah.
And do experiments, which sort of, I thought of kind of a crock. These forms that you fill out to grade how good you feel.
Oh, yeah, those
Likert scales, they're called,
Yeah.
On a scale from 1 to 5, how happy are you? It's like, oh, give me a break.
Oh yeah,
anyway.
And then it's like the one that they always ask for, like before or after pregnancy. They always ask like the depression screening. It's like, seriously, it's like they don't consider life. Like life in itself, there's times it's depressing, there's times that it's extremely happy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I've told people, like the DSM-5 or any of the DSMs, really. All they did was just come up with a way to put it into a book, to sell it to insurance companies so that they can bill. Even sleep apnea's in it.
Yeah. But also just to continue the rant, the law, it's to satisfy the law.
Yep,
because the law wants to solve a problem, and they say, how do we solve this problem? And say, here, we'll give you a definition. If they fall on this side, you do one thing. If they fall on the other side, you do something else. So they've got these things called forensic psychologists, which is legal psychology. And it's like, I hate that. I keep away from that. And I can understand who uses it, but the law is not about justice. It's about settling disputes, really, in the most, peaceful manner. Justice, that if you're lucky, you might get some of that. So, but back to psychology. So, I have this disdain for intellectualizing all this stuff. And it brings me back to trying to talk to people about their spiritual, emotional, personal importance. What's important? That's going to be the basis of your decisions. What's important? And, it's not going to be measured through some scientific measure. So, and this sort of gets me into dreams, because dreams are another altered state, and everybody does it, and we spend a third of our life doing it. And how about like understanding it? What are your emotions trying to tell you? Like, well, you said they were like the red light on the dashboard. I think they're more than a red light. I think they're a map to meaning.
Yes,
You
they
could
are.
say the red light is when things are going really, you know, off balance. But when things are in balance, there should be a green light on the dashboard as well as the red light. So how about reading those lights, or maybe even reading the whole dashboard? The whole thing may be emotional. The idea that it's, reduced to a bunch of numbers or success in business or family usually just means that there's a crust on the top that's not broken yet. So,
True.
it can break. It can break in your family and your relationships. I mean, we've all had heartbreak. Heartbreak is tough, man. And it often comes from nowhere, and you don't know what to do with it, and it takes years to recover from. It's not called a mental illness. Probably should be, except maybe it's so common that the insurance companies wouldn't know what to do with it.
No,
So
they
don't
wouldn't.
want it. They wouldn't. They don't want it. But it's definitely disabling as much as almost anything, heartbreak. And everything, and it happens to everybody. And why? I mean, I would assume that most people never quite figure it out. Is it my fault? Is it your fault? Or is it like nature, nurture? I don't know. Anyway, so I don't get a lot of people with heartbreak, but I do get some people with relationship problems, which can be kind of close because they're struggling and they're upset and they're unsure. So here I am with, to answer, I think your question was, how did I get here? And, it all sort of gets put together as what's meaningful for me. It's selfish in the end that I don't want to do something that's meaningless. So I have basically removed all my social life, so wiped it all away, because I'm really interested in dealing with people at a fundamental level, and those are the people who are my clients. Well, it's a little funny because I'm not people's friend. As a therapist, you're not their friend.
No.
Not quid pro quo. I rub your back, you rub mine. I'm not like that. In fact, I'm an irritant. I'm almost like a little imp trying to push you into the area where you didn't want to look. So, and I feel rewarded when you do look and there's some epiphany and some change.
Yeah, you get that aha moment.
And most therapists don't do that. Most therapists are selling their services to make you happy.
Yep.
And so then we get to hypnosis, right? So what can you do with hypnosis? Lots of stuff.
Oh yeah, a lot more than the other stuff. That's I don't like the talk therapy.
Well, but like you say, it's all sort of hypnosis. It's all sort of an induction. Mm-hmm. But I know what you mean. The talk therapy that doesn't go deeper is just sort of skating around the pond. Yeah, and
that's the stuff that I'm like, it doesn't help. If you really want to go deeper, you really want to change, the only way to do it is at that subconscious level. And that's what a lot of people don't understand.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I do something called past life regression, which has nothing to do with past lives. It's just a name. Mm-hmm. But what it involves is talking to somebody for 3 hours straight about everything in their life, from the past to the present, the future there. And if you can, you get hypnotic about it, and you get them to imagine things that didn't happen and put themselves in places that they never were and experience feelings that they have tried to avoid their whole life. Yeah. And it can be very powerful. But sometimes it's just ends up talking. I had a guy last week, and every time I tried to make him imagine a new world, he would go back to memories and create the old one. And it was really frustrating because I couldn't get him out of his old reality. Every time I tried to bring him into a new life, it was where he was back then.
Interesting.
He wouldn't imagine an alternative, which is what the whole protocol is about. And we kind of fought on that. I kept saying, well, imagine instead of you're with your family, you are your mother. Now, how would you feel? And he said, And one of this guy's problems was he was just too nice. He was always trying to be nice. He was always trying to do good things. So I was saying, well, imagine you're a person who does bad things, or you're in a situation where good things are not the right things, like violence or stuff.
Yeah, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Oh yeah, we got to run out of time.
Yep.
Mind Strength Balance is my website, Mind Strength Balance, and I have a bunch of books that you can see there. It's a big website with tabs for psychotherapy and brain training, which is another altered state, and counseling, dreams, sleep. So you can also book a free conversation with me for a shorter period of time. I'm watching the clock tick down here.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you take it away?
Yes. Thank you so much, Lincoln. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody's time and energy in today's episode. And be sure to follow my guest, Lincoln Stoller, today on.
That's all for now, folks. Make sure you should live to make you for fun. Tap that follow button to subscribe. Quack, quack. Bye-bye. Well, next time. Now you got it.